Doing this, you will turn very basic, boring looking movements into hot looking ones. If you struggle with it and you feel like you need more help, maybe you're uncomfortable on the dance floor, just like my client Lisa, who used to dance like this, and just after weeks inside my online program, this is how she's dancing now. If you're interested in a similar transformation, stay tuned till the end of this video. I will tell you how we can work together inside my online program. The first movement that we're going to transform into a hotter one will be the plain, boring old two-step. So we're going to just be going side to side, and that doesn't look like much, but we'll keep the feet the same. However, we'll add the torso, we'll add the hip, there will be a lot going on. We'll start with the torso. As your step open, I want you to at the very same time bring the shoulder down so you're leaning sideways a little bit, and then bring it back up, the torso I mean, when the feet are together. So you're going down, up, just get used to those two actions together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Notice that I have my knees bent the entire time, and that's because I'm getting ready for the hip to participate. We're going to do a little bit of this, so a little bit of side wave action going on. So the movement starts the same, meaning we will be dipping, we are taking the step at the same time, and then at the same time you're going to be pushing the hip up, kind of like if you have a little string here and you pull, so the hip goes up. All those actions, 3 actions, will happen at once. So again, 1, right? All at the same time. The step, the torso, and the hip up. Again, we have 1, and then I'm slowly bringing the hip up as the foot goes in. You can even slide it in, you don't have to. As the torso is straightening up, the feet end up together. Let's try the same direction again. We have 1, 2, and then we'll switch. You're stepping open the other way, you're dipping with the torso, you're lifting the hip. The heel may lift a little bit to help you, although it's not necessary. You might be able to lift the hip without the heel, and then reset when the feet are together. We have super slowly 1, 2, 1, 2, down and center, down and center. Pay attention to the hip. You don't have to lean further, or you don't have to make the torso movement big. The hip is, I feel like, more visible. We want it to be more visible because this movement is not really about the torso. It's a combination of both, but you don't want the torso to be, you know, the biggest movement, and then the hip goes up just a little bit. See if we can even it out. If the steps are messing you up, you can also practice without stepping, just the torso, just the hip. So just the little bit snaky motion will look like this. Starts with the torso, lift the hip, reset to the center, and I'm shifted to one side so that I have space to go the other way. Down and up with the torso, down and up, and hip does the opposite. Up and down, up and down. And only when you have that action, which by the way, it might take some practicing, only then add the two-step to it. 1, 2, 1, 2. And also what you can do is you can look at the hip that you're moving. It brings attention to our hips. It will look good. Not all the time, just a couple of times, and then you can focus forward again. So you see, guys, how we changed this movement, which doesn't look like much, into this. It's pretty much the same two-step. The footwork is the same, yet it looks totally different. The next move will be heel-in, which is again very basic movement with the feet. It looks like this if nothing else is happening. Yeah, I wouldn't do just that in the club, but we can add again the hips to it so we can make the movement much smoother. We're going to swing the hip to the side. You know the dip, I've taught it before on my channel. It's just a little swinging action, you bring the hip from one side to the other by bending the knees, and then at the end, pushing the hip out to the side. So now we'll just do it together with the heel that goes in. Where you place the weight is very important. So if we start bringing the right heel in, this is my right, if you mirror me, that's going to be your left foot, you have to swing the hip the opposite way, not to that foot because it's impossible, it's not going to connect, but the other way. So let's say you're starting with your left heel in, at the very same time, swing the hip to the right. So when you finish, the heel is in just a little bit, not necessarily 90 degrees, but the hip is sticking out. Then you reset and you'll do the same thing the other way. 1, 2, 1, 2. Imagine it's the heel kind of pushing your hip out, the opposite hip, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to do anything specific with the arms. You can keep them bent. And now we changed this boring movement, just the heel in, into a much smoother version. The last boring movement that we're going to transform would be a step forward, So what happens here in the very basic version, I'm just going to step out on the snare drum on 2, and then I bring the feet together. 1, 2, 1, 2. So if you're doing this on the dance floor, there's not much going on. So let me add the hips again. Every time we take a step forward, you're going to touch the floor with the ball of the foot. It will initiate the hip roll to the back. So we have step, you start pushing the hip diagonally forward, take it back, and once it went back, bring the feet close together again. Switch feet, step, roll, together, step, roll, together. And notice that the step and the hip, it's not a disconnected movement. I don't first step, then I pause, then I roll. They merge, right? So that's why I said the step initiates the hip roll. It's all connected. We have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Notice that the step is small. I'm not reaching far with the foot because then it will be impossible to add the hip. So you want to keep it fairly close to the leg that you're standing on and focus mostly on the hip roll. We have to make it smooth. Let me show you how to do all of those movements with the music. But before I do, which movements did you like? Did you like any of them? Were any of them too difficult? Maybe I should break them down more. Let me know in the comments and I will do it. Let's start with the first movement, our side wave. 1, 2, 1, 2. Look at the hip from time to time. Keep the knees bent, check if they're bent, because if they're not, you won't be able to lift the hip. Good, let's do our second movement, which was the heel in with the hip swing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Nice and slow. Keep the movement small. Make sure you finish with the hips sticking out. And our last step, we're stepping forward with the hip roll to the back. We have 1, 2, 1, 2. Focus on the hip roll, keep the steps small. Check if the step is not too big, you're not stepping too far out. Keep the arms loose, let them do whatever. If you're uncomfortable dancing in different social situations, you tend to avoid the dance floor, you don't like the way you look dancing, I can help. Inside my online program, Confidence Through Dance, I help adults go from the sidelines to actually thriving in social dance situations by building their dance skills and their confidence to enjoy themselves on the dance floor. In the past 18 years, my system helped students like, for example, Monica, go from very self-conscious and rigid on the dance floor to now looking like this. How long has it been since you held me? Or students like Gail go from unsure what to do on the dance floor, no moves, no skills, to freely expressing herself to her favorite songs. Below this video you will find a link where you can book a free consultation with me, and let's see if we can work together inside my online program, Confidence Through Dance. And also below you'll find a link to my free 45-minute training where I'm spilling my secrets on how you can become confident dancing in social settings, so check it out.